Due to the graphic nature of its content, listener discretion is advised.
From the halls of Montezuma to the shores of Tripoli, we fight our country's battles in the air, on land and sea. First to fight.
On this episode of Cigars and Sea Stories, Mike and Juslin sit down with Scott Faith, Army officer and editor-in-chief of the Havok Journal. All right, brother, we have officially pressed the little red button. Now is the time where try to figure out where the hell you're calling us from. You said that you're in New York City. Whereabouts in New York City are you?
I don't even know right now. I'm walking around on the streets with my headset in and just talking to you guys and just taking it in.
That is awesome. All right, so a guy is roaming through New York City right now, chatting with us on Skype. All right, there's worse things in the world to do.
Yeah, so what are we going to talk about tonight, guys? I hear this is Cigars and Sea Stories, so if you got one, blaze it up for me, because I'm not going to be smoking tonight, but I sure got some stories.
Awesome, wonderful. Yeah, really, what we would like to do is talk about what you do now, some of the efforts, how you actually bring value into the world, which is what we're all about here, and in doing so, what we'll do is kind of shift gears, mid-flow, so to speak, and kind of get like, all right, what really led you to go in that route? Whether it's military experiences, because correct me if I'm wrong, you're in the Army, right?
Yes.
Okay, and can I use your rank or?
Let's just leave it general for now. My chain of command is pretty supportive, but I don't want to put them in a bad spot depending on what we talk about tonight.
Okay, cool.
So yeah, I'm in the Army. I've been in the Army a long time, and hopefully get to stay in a while longer. But with these troop cuts, it's looking more and more uncertain.
So what is it that you do exactly, Scott?
So right now, I'm an officer in the Army. I work in a training element, and I help prepare young men and women to go forward and do good things in the Army. And my side job and how I got affiliated with Cigars and Sea Stories and hang out with you fine folks is I work with Blackside Concepts. I run the Havok Journal, Havok with a K, and we put out content for the warfighters and help keep America informed about what we do and what's going on in the world, and that's been a lot of fun. I've been doing that for about 2 years, working with Marty Skovlund and his crew, and it's been a lot of fun and got to meet a lot of interesting people, and looking forward to doing it more in the future.
Very cool. So what brought you into the Havok Journal specifically?
So I met Marty. We were friends on a social media site, and then we met at a conference. I was really impressed with him. He's a young guy, but he's super smart and he's super motivated, and he really gets business in an intuitive way that a lot of people just don't get. And one of the things that I do in my spare time is I help veterans who are transitioning out of the military. I help give them business advice. I help proofread their transcripts, their applications, their resumes, their business plans, whatever they got. Most of them fail. Most small businesses fail. And I think a lot of times veterans leave the service without a solid plan, but Marty was an exception. So I helped him with that, and he mentioned he was starting a blog and asked if I would write for it, and I did. And I helped him out with his book, Violence of Action, and then he asked me to kind of manage the Havok Journal, and I agreed to it, and it's been great ever since.
What's your background that took you over to the Havok Journal, or I guess you could say, I don't want to say your resume, don't get me wrong, but I mean, hey, I was an English major in college. What brought you to that?
Well, Marty and I come from a similar background in the military. We're both from the special operations community. We were in different units, but in the same overarching task force at the same time, even though we didn't know each other. We had very different jobs. And we just came together through a special operations themed social media site, and we just really hit it off, and helping them set up Blackside Concepts and helping that company grow became something I was interested in. When I retire, whenever that's going to happen, then I wanted to go into private business, and Marty's got a very successful model.
Very cool. Right on. So you said that you're in the special operations community. How long were you in that community before you went into what you're doing now?
Let's see, about 8 or 9 years, I think. It was a pretty good stretch. Best years of my Army career, hands down, most stressful, most dangerous, most exciting, most meaningful work I've done outside of my own family. So yeah, it was a good ride.
Very cool. Right on. Where were you at? Maybe we chewed some of the same dirt.
I was in Afghanistan. I did 4 tours in Afghanistan, mostly in the Balad area, and then in Iraq I was at Balad and Bagram and Basra. If it started with a B, it seemed I was there.
Right on. Were you in Bravo Company also?
No.
Oh damn,
no,
that would have worked out. Right on. What was your MOS in the Army?
So I'm an intelligence officer.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, I been doing that for a long time, and it's been very interesting. I still don't know who shot JFK or where the UFOs are buried, but
still got the
it's
shovel.
been fun. Yeah.
Right on. So where's the Army counter intel school? Because I know ours is out of Dam Neck. Where'd you actually go to school?
We do a lot of it at Fort Huachuca in Arizona.
Okay, right on. Now,
so we got the human school out there. You got CI. You got the officer basic training. So Fort Huachuca is what we call our Intel Center of Excellence.
Oh, okay. Seems pretty intelligent. Right on. So what? I'm sorry. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you are a graduate of Yale, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Did you go ROTC and then go into the Army, or did you just like, hey, I'm out of Yale, this is what I want to do?
I did ROTC, but I did graduate school at Yale.
Oh, okay. Very cool. Right on.
Yeah, that was, guys. I tell you, I didn't want to go to Yale. I wanted to go to Texas A&M. I wanted to go somewhere in the South. That's where I'm from. But General McChrystal was at Yale, and he was our commander of the task force before McRaven, who was also excellent. But McChrystal was at Yale, so I figured if it was good enough for him, it was good enough for me to at least apply. And shockingly, I got accepted, and I was ready for be ostracized. I was ready to fight hippies on the green every Friday, and all this ridiculousness that just didn't happen. It never happened a single time. My classmates were mature and thoughtful, and we didn't agree on a lot of stuff, but I never felt disrespected for my military service, and I'm so grateful and glad I went to Yale.
Well, right on. There's a good little pitch for Yale. They don't currently sponsor the show, but go Bulldogs, right, or whatever.
All right. So as an Army officer, what is the most bizarre thing you've come across your soldiers doing?
Oh God. Oh.
I mean,
there's
without
so
names, just.
There are. What kind of detail are we allowed to go into on the show?
Here, let me put it to you this way. It doesn't fucking matter. So you can go that kind of detail. But if Private Schmeckatelli's balls got caught in a trap, then Schmeckatelli's balls got caught. So you know what I mean?
All right. So, well, I mean, just from the very beginning, when I was in the basic course, I did the infantry officer basic course. I came in on the branch detail program. So when I was in the infantry officer basic course, the JAG lawyer came to brief us, and he said, you guys are going to experience so much bizarreness in the military. And as an example, he told a story about how when he got to his first unit, before he became a lawyer, he was an infantry officer, got to his first unit, one of the Joes came up to him and said, sir, my platoon sergeant is fucking my wife, and he won't let me fuck his anymore. And it just went down, and it just, hearing that story, I was like, yeah, that's funny, that's haha. But that type of stuff doesn't really happen in the military. Yeah, it does. It does.
Oh yeah, it does.
And I tell the people that I work with, Joe is great. Joe's awesome. We couldn't do what we do without Joe, but Joe gets in trouble and makes bad decisions. And most of the time, the NCOs do a great job of keeping track of Joe, but it's also the officer's job as well. So what I tell young officers is you gotta know what dumb shit is. You gotta have the balls to stop dumb shit from happening around you, and you gotta make sure you don't do dumb shit yourself. If you can do those things, you'll probably be pretty successful as an officer. Don't do dumb shit.
Hey, that's pretty accurate.
Yeah.
That's solid.
Yeah, if you have a short haircut, can run fast, can show up on time, and don't do dumb shit, you're golden. You're gonna make 04, guaranteed.
Look at, there you have it, folks. A little slice of wisdom. No big deal.
So it's that type of thing that really is the meaning that you could draw out of military service. What else thus far can you give some insight to our listeners as to what you draw meaning from?
Oh, wow. So my father was in the Army. I never wanted to do anything but be in the military. And in fact, the only reason I went to college was because my father told me that's the only way I could be an officer like him. Of course, that's not true, but I'm grateful that he told me that. I went to college because I had to, but after being in the Army a couple of years, I realized how important education really is. Nothing beats experience, but education is a good adjunct to experience. And if you have enough education, sometimes you can avoid some of these mistakes in strategic thinking and tactical thinking that a lot of people make. So I decided to go back to grad school, but my grades were so crappy from undergrad because I partied my way through school that I really had to overcome that. So what I tell people is do the best you can at everything you do, even the things you think suck. College is not hard. I made it hard because I chose not to study. Being in the military can be difficult. It can be stressful. But if you don't do dumb things and if you do the baseline expectations, it's not hard to be a good soldier. So what I think when it comes to what the American people should know about us is we're just like them. And that's what I try to convey to my friends at Yale. It was shocking to me that they had never met a veteran. These are people that grow up to run the country. Yale, Columbia, Harvard, these elite schools, they make decisions that affect us that could literally be life or death for us, and they never met us before. But at the same time, I'd never met them. I'd never met someone in the Peace Corps. I never had any Jewish friends before I went to Yale. I never had any gay friends before I went to Yale. I never met any Pakistanis that didn't have a bag on their head when that we captured on the battlefield before. Right. These relationships were important on both sides. So I think it's important that veterans don't keep civilians at arm's length. I think we have a tendency to do that sometimes. We say, civilians don't understand us, and then we turn around and don't let them in when they try. And the civilians need to understand us. We do what we do for the country, and it's important work, and it's legitimate work. And no, you don't have to be an idiot to join the military. I mean, when I first got to Yale, some of the reactions were, wow, you're in the Army and got into Yale? Like, those are mutually exclusive things. It was pretty interesting.
It's curious also because you specifically, actually, I don't know if it was you or someone else had posted in regards to Army Officer Corps and the intelligence slipping there within as far as the test scores and things of that nature. But even more curiously, the enlisted side was going up.
And I did comment on that article. I didn't write it. I think that was actually about the Marine Corps. That's an interesting dynamic that the pool of applicants is bigger than it ever has been. But the thrust of the article, and I haven't fact checked it, so I can't verify it or not. But they're saying Marine officers are getting dumber as a group. And I think that might be true. There's all kind of things that could be in effect. We have this big pool, but the pool of people who want to serve in the military is shrinking. So we have a wide audience to pick from, but the solid people who see the military as a career is getting smaller and smaller. The reason that's a problem is we need top-notch people in the military. The war is getting more technical every day. We need forward thinkers. But what we're going to end up with is we're going to have a military caste. We're going to have people who have their fathers were in the military, their father's father, et cetera, and we're already developing that now. I mentioned a minute ago that my father was in the Army. My children will probably join the Army. And that's dangerous over time because America looks at the military to solve all our problems. Hurricane Katrina, call out the military. Go fight Al-Qaeda. Go fight Ebola. what happens when the American people decide that the military needs to fix our political problems? It's going to be chaos. I don't want that to happen. So we need to get more people involved from all castes of society, and not just have a military caste in our country. We need to work on that.
I agree with you completely. That's actually, I mean, the way I see it, we have, as veteran entrepreneurs, the opportunity to do business right, in a right way with integrity, and showing people actually bridging those gaps, you know. You being a Yale graduate, because of your experience in the military, will be much more open to maybe dealing with some enlisted guys from down the South working out of their basement, you know? Like,
Yeah.
this type of thing ends up happening because of that, I don't want to say fraternity that this, you know, post-military entrepreneurship has. But we really do have that opportunity to show everyone what the right way is, in my opinion.
We absolutely do. And if we can just figure out a way to stop fighting among ourselves as veterans, to stop making more problems for our community, we could be a huge block politically, economically, socially. We could do things if we work together. But I know you guys have seen on social media the dog pile, the cannibalism that veterans do to each other. That's not helpful. It doesn't help our unity. And our civilian friends who see that, why should they respect us if we can't respect ourselves or each other? That's something we all need to work on as a group.
You're absolutely right. Yeah. One of the things that I like conveying, especially to the audience, and what's funny is, especially with Marines, it's shocking to me how many people disregard the spirituality that is brought into the fight, and how each one of us aligned in order to go out and kick collective ass. So, you know, then when we get back to the States, it's like, oh, okay, well, you know, kind of eat the apple, fuck the core, or whatever it winds up being. And it's like, no, brother, like, you know, we don't need to talk boot camp stories or anything like that. But really, to be honest with you, you guys are the only people who understand me. Yeah. So, you know, there's that. But then there's also, you know, kind of going back, so to speak, to the NCO Corps and the Officer Corps. You know, I was a former NCO. And I have a lot of buddies who are NCOs, and they're out there in the environment doing great shit. And what I always tell them is, I'm like, listen, you know, the military, whether you like it or not, whether or not you drank the Kool-Aid, they gave you a superpower. And that is your different processes that you can go to. So not at all in a cheesy sense. What I find fascinating about it from an NCO's perspective, and I'll even use a sports analogy because I grew up playing hockey, you know, situational awareness when you're on the battlefield and you have a multitude of processes that you can go through. You know, no plan survives first contact. You got to shoot, move, communicate, and call in adjacent units. You know, so I bring everything back over to a battlefield analogy when you come full circle, and I tell these guys that are out there, you know, consider us an adjacent unit. We just want to support your mission, support your cause. Do not hesitate to pick up the radio and call us into the fight. So it's that same mentality of NCOs that were running patrol bases in Sangan, calling each other across the Ville, going, hey, brother, I got a patrol that's going to be in your area, you know, 09, or whatever it winds up being, and you're coordinating and collaborating. We did all of these things when we were in the military, especially being Marines. We had to call combined forces and what have you. You know, why aren't we doing it now? And why... You know, I understand a good bit of rivalry, especially that the Marine Corps and the Army has whenever we're operating in the same AO. But like, why can't we operate as adjacent units? Why can't we collaborate? Sure. The need is what people have, or excuse me, the need essentially is the enemy, and we've got to be able to go out and crush
absolutely
that.
Right. And I remember I was going into my second year at Yale, and our director had a big party at his house for the incoming students. And I went to this to kind of welcome, you know, the new people. And I was there, and I saw a guy I knew was a veteran. Never saw him before in my life, but I could tell he was a vet. He was standing by himself, back against the wall, short haircut, not talking to anybody. And I know how that feels. He's there. He's out of his element. He doesn't know anyone other than his wife, who got accepted to Yale. He doesn't have anything in common with these people, he thinks. And I went over to him and introduced myself, and he was a Marine, I'm Army, and we had very different experiences downrange, but we immediately hit it off, and we're still friends now because we had that instant bond. And what he found out, he became good friends with a number of people that just he wouldn't have known other than the fact that his wife got into Yale, and then he decided he was going to follow suit. So he's going to college now himself down south. So he's a very impressive guy and just an example of how vets can help each other through things. And if we're more accepting of our civilian colleagues, how much better life will be for us.
Absolutely. It's either that or chicks going through Ranger Battalion or Ranger School.
Well, I don't have much of an opinion on that one either. You know, we've covered that a lot on Havok Journal.
I know.
And I'm not a ranger by any definition, so I tend to stay out of that argument. But it all goes back, in my opinion, is if we're going to have standards, keep the standards. If people can meet the standards, let them do it. The problem that I have is the standards aren't the same. I don't know what it's like in the Corps, but excellence for a female, almost max, is my minimum on push-ups and the run on my PT test. So if we're going to make everything equal, let's make it equal. And don't wait, do it now.
Right. So you're saying like on the matrix is what you're saying, on the structure of the matrix. If a female goes max out, that is the minimum for a male standard. That's what you're saying?
Yep.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And females, they can have long hair, wear makeup, earrings. I don't want to do any of those things. But if we're equal, and I'm all 100% for that,
right,
then let's have equality. What I found though is that when people talk about equal rights, they often mean special rights. So we want everything you've got, and we want to keep our special rights.
Oh,
so are we going for special, or are we going for equal? And I think, if we're going to go equal, then the standards are the same across the board. And we could start with the physical fitness standards. The problem with the physical fitness standards is because it's an easily quantifiable number, people use that as a baseline for evaluation. So if I were competing with a female peer for a key job or promotion, and we're equal everywhere else, they're going to look at that number and they're going to see 300 for her, which would be 180 for me. Now, I don't get 180 on the PT test. That's just an example.
Right. So
that number is going to be bigger even though we did the exact same thing, or maybe I even did more. So she's going to get favorable treatment for that.
Mm.
But people don't want to do that because as a group, women are less capable physically. But if we start making the standard the same, the women will rise to meet it, I have no doubt. So why are we holding them back, and why are they disadvantaging men in favor of women in these areas? Those are good questions that I hope someone will address in the near future.
Absolutely. Can I ask you one saved round, or you got to go?
No, I'm good, man.
All right. Question was posed earlier. Should we have officers start out as enlisted first? Do you feel that there would be benefit?
I do, actually, and I've thought this ever, because like I said before, the only reason I went to ROTC is because I wanted to be an officer. I do think I could have benefited from time enlisted. I'm just not sure how that would work. How would we get people, convince them to enlist? We need so many officers because our Army is so big. So my short answer is I 100% support that. I'm just not sure how practically it would happen. I'd have to see some figures and see how it worked. I know a lot of countries do. Even if we just all went through OCS, something to get that enlisted experience. There on the one hand, there's the benefit of having that enlisted experience. On the other hand, we have the whole if it's not broke, don't fix it attitude. It seems to work really well to have officers concentrating on being officers from the very beginning, the NCO Corps concentrating on being in the NCO Corps, and there is some overlap. You do have officers that give up their commission to become NCOs. That happens, or warrants. It's rare, but it happens. And of course, you have NCOs who give up the NCO route to become officers. But right now, the system seems to be working pretty well. So it'd be an interesting conversation to have.
Well, wonderful. We'll leave it at that. Hey, thank you so much for your time. Honestly, it's wonderful to have you on. And,
hey, thanks, and I hope we can do this again in the future.
Yes, most definitely.
Very cool. Well, you have a wonderful night, Scott.
Hey, thanks, guys. I look forward to swapping sea stories with you guys again soon.
Have a
good
great
night.
one. Ready to sign off?
Yep.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Cigars and Sea Stories. Please subscribe, rate, and review the podcast. Give us your comments, your thoughts, your suggestions. We want to know how we can do better. Who should we interview? Who should we have on? Don't forget to follow us on Facebook. You can follow us on Twitter at Cigars and Sea. Again, follow us on Twitter at Cigars and Sea. Cue the music. Hold on. Yeah. Hold on. I'm gonna kill this thing. I'm gonna kill it. It's off entirely.